Hey there guys, and welcome back to another reaction video. This time again an SCP, but it's SCP-058. Heart of Darkness. Huh. So it's pretty much the heart of that masochist crusader from Konosuba then. Doubt it. Also, I'm making another reaction video because I've spent the day shiny hunting in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, and let's just say I ended up with a Vulpix that apparently has the characteristic that it loves to eat. Anyway, let's press play.
It skitters in the dark, its insect-like legs tapping across the marble floors as terrified Foundation researchers flee. They hear its voice, the deep, silky tones of an elderly British man, spouting nonsense like, "The nightmare is a dream to the nameless slug that wanders across minefield in the remains of deer and kings." While the scientists run, the creature gains on them. It's fast, impossibly fast. While they still try to escape down this darkened hallway, ear-splitting containment breach sirens blast through the air. They may try to escape.
Is it a literal heart?
In a sense, they're all.
Actually, it looks more like a brain.
All they are now
like something from
the Heart of Darkness. When someone says the word heart, there are a lot of
it looks more like something from that Baldur's Gate game, you know?
You might think of heartbreak, rejection, loss. You might simply think of a heart in the anatomical sense, the vital organ that pumps blood through our bodies. It's unlikely, though, that you would associate the word heart with terror, destruction, and countless deaths. However, employees of the SCP Foundation might think differently, especially if they've ever had a run-in with SCP-058. Much of the information about 058's discovery is highly classified, but the few details that are known paint a chilling picture. At an SCP Foundation test site, the day was proceeding as usual, with scientists and security personnel going about their regular daily tasks. There was no hint of danger in the air, beyond the base level that always comes with setting foot in an SCP Foundation site, at least. Several researchers were performing an experiment, the specifics of which have been expunged from all records, involving the carcass of a cow. When a researcher,
they were anal probing the cow,
hands on the specimen and prepared to dissect it, he was shocked to feel a pulse coming from the supposedly dead animal. Dr. C shared his surprise with his colleagues, but his concerns were dismissed immediately. Clearly this was a corpse. He was imagining things, they said. After all, he was relatively new to the job. It was probably just nerves. The head researcher, Dr. L, insisted that he take over, pushing Dr. C
also, that's a small-ass cow.
To make an incision into the animal's chest. As he did, he too felt something peculiar. There was no doubt about it. This dead cow had a beating heart. He looked up from his work to tell the other researchers to explain what he felt, but by then, it was too late. Something horrible was already happening. With a stomach-churning sound of squishing flesh, the cow's heart burst from its chest and flopped onto the floor. That's a big heart. It was terrifyingly large, and all the doctors jumped back from the sight of it. 4 spindly, spider-like legs poked through the flesh of the heart, and it began to quickly skitter about the room. Researchers reviewing the security footage would later note that it didn't just move randomly. It seemed agitated, angry at being discovered, and it displayed immediate hostility towards the scientists in the room. 4 tentacles next unfurled from within the heart and stretched out into full, writhing appendages. They moved frighteningly fast as the heart whipped around the room and were coated in sharp spines. Finally, a stinger poked out from the back of the heart, where the whole of the superior vena cava should be.
Yikes.
All of the scientists leapt into action, with one reaching for a scalpel and another moving towards the door.
But seriously, it looks more like a brain than a heart.
The tentacles wrapped around them and ripped them to shreds. Hearing screams coming from the laboratory, security personnel arrived to contain the threat. However, they were no match for the strange creature that would soon be known as SCP-058. It tore through the security team in minutes, leaving their tattered remains in its wake. Much to the horror of the surviving personnel at the site, SCP-058 was able to escape containment and make its way to a
Uh-oh.
neighboring town. Reports of the
Well,
incident
bye-bye
said that
to that
when the
town.
creature reached the town, you could hear the screaming for miles. SCP-058 carved a path of violence through the town, attacking everything in sight with its stinger and tentacles, and leaving a trail of strange fluid from its stinger.
I think that's called
Dozens of
blood.
citizens were killed, and 70% of the buildings were completely destroyed. When agents were dispatched to the location to retrieve the creature, they were shocked to see the level of destruction caused by something so small. The scent of blood and smoke filled the air, and
don't
severed
judge a book
limbs
by its
littered the
cover
ground
applies there.
alongside splintered wood and collapsed brick. The survivors removed from the wreckage were inconsolable, only calming down once they were given an amnestic to erase their memory of the encounter with SCP-058. They had to be given new lives as well, as there was nothing left of their old ones. SCP Foundation agents were only able to capture and contain SCP-058 after it was crushed by pieces of a building that collapsed on top of it. They found it flattened under a slab of stone, legs flailing uselessly,
I
tentacles
mean,
limp. The agents were able to
technically
safely remove
that's
the debris
just
and
the
bring in the
bad
heart
luck
without any more casualties
for the
that
thing.
day. Once it was brought into captivity, the heart was contained for 3 weeks and remained largely quiet.
And then
during
it
that
escaped
time.
again, I
It was
bet.
almost inconceivable that this small creature hadn't been killed in the incident, but the Foundation would soon learn that this creature was freakishly durable. It escaped once more while being transferred to an SCP containment site,
Oh
again
boy.
causing injuries and death. Having only experienced SCP-058 in its docile injured form, the team responsible for the transfer was unprepared for the sheer power and violence the creature was capable of. It was able to
It
escape an
murdered
armored
everybody
car and
again,
make its
didn't it?
way into a forest, where it eviscerated several squirrels and rabbits. Or rather, they were believed to be squirrels and rabbits. The remains were too mutilated to properly identify. It was only finally apprehended after being crushed by an armored tank. But even
Jesus,
this
that's
didn't kill the
frickingly
creature,
durable, yeah.
and it was transferred to
Yeah, that's
Armed
frickin' durable.
Biocontainment Area 14, where it remains to this day. There's a great deal about SCP-058 that is horrifying, but there is one attribute it has shown in captivity that would make even the most seasoned researcher's skin crawl. Though it has no anatomical capacity for speech, no throat, vocal cords, or even a respiratory
That
system,
they know of.
SCP-058 speaks. Not only does it speak, but it speaks constantly, in the deep voice of an elderly British man. No one knows
Yes,
who
quite.
the voice might belong to, or if it belongs to anyone at all. Perhaps it belongs only to SCP-058 somehow, as is often the case with SCPs that are capable of speech.
So
There have
now
been
the
multiple attempts
British
to
are
interview the
turning
creature,
into
and
anomalies,
each time,
or
it
be
ended
turning out to
in
be
complete
anomalous.
disaster. The only interview with an available transcript, interview 05804, was conducted by Dr. Johnston with several personnel in the room for additional security. Dr. Johnston attempted to get at the origins of the creature, asking for its name and where it was from. The creature responded in cryptic, unsettling poetry, giving answers to simple questions with, "I had dreams of the Queen, wonders that lived inside the hearts of love, and silent treatments for all the elderly that I knew were once whole." After the 4th recitation of the
Foreshadowing,
similar
I
verse
think.
from the heart, Personnel D-067 made a comment on the creepy nature of its responses, almost as if it was offended by the remark. SCP-058 immediately stretched a tentacle across the room, wrapped it around D-067, and lifted him into the air.
And
He
proceeded
began
to
screaming and clawing at the
squeeze.
tentacle in an attempt to free himself.
Get it?
As his fellow personnel tried to
Squeeze.
help him. They grabbed at the tentacle, but found their hands pierced and bloodied by the spikes that cover it. Dr. Johnston commanded 058 to let him go, but it did not oblige. Instead, the man was crushed to death by the tentacle.
Called
and
it.
His limp body left to drop to the floor.
Squeeze.
The interview concluded with a single statement from the nightmarish heart. The sensual violence of lust is all the assurance you will ever need to know the worth of life. SCP-058
Wow.
never seems to say anything that has to do with the people or events around it. It speaks in the same haunting, poetic language even when
Shakespearean,
it's
it's
attacking
called,
or
I think.
killing something, no matter what happens to it, what is done to it, or what anyone says. SCP-058 keeps talking, and its tone of voice with the pace of speech never changing, and further attempts to interview it have been abandoned due to the safety risk involved. So what happened to the creature often called the Heart of Darkness? Where is it now? SCP-058
It's
is kept in
beating
an isolated containment
somewhere.
chamber made of reinforced heat-resistant
In your
steel
own
with a backing
chest
of
cavity.
reinforced concrete. In order to placate its bloodthirsty, carnivorous tendencies, the creature is given a live cow every 3 days. It is uncertain how exactly SCP-058 eats, given that it does not have a mouth or stomach, but every time it is finished with a cow, only bones remain. Routine maintenance is conducted on a tight schedule, and the heart is never allowed out of its containment area under any circumstances. After 2 previous escapes from containment, the Foundation is not taking any chances. Its constant speech is recorded via audio devices that are running at all times. Out of concern for their safety
Well,
and
you know,
mental
know
health,
what they say
no
about
personnel
monkeys
are
and
permitted to
typewriters.
listen to recordings of SCP-058 speaking for more than 30 minutes at a time. It is unknown what will happen to someone who listens for longer, but it has been suggested that the consequences could be dire. If the creature ever escapes again, the containment site is ordered to be destroyed via the detonation of an on-site nuclear weapon. Under no circumstances can it be allowed to make its way out into the world.
Yeah, I can see a
Even
joke
with all
with
these
that one.
precautions in place.
Imagine they have like they think, oh no, SCP-058 escaped, and then right before the timer on the nuke hits 0, oh no, I can see it over there. It's still in containment. It was just like hiding right under the window. And then they all just look at him and say, you, boom.
SCP-058 has been responsible for over 150 deaths at its
And then it
current
actually
containment
escapes.
site. There are some at the Foundation who have campaigned for SCP-058 to be terminated.
Yeah, it's too durable
believing
for
that.
that.
There is more harm than good done by keeping it alive. However, all attempts to terminate it have so far failed. No matter how much physical trauma the heart suffers, it does not seem to
Maybe
be able
pin
to
it
be
up
killed.
against the indestructible
It can only be
reptile.
incapacitated for a short time. There is a classic horror story by Edgar Allan Poe called The Telltale Heart. In it, a man murders an old man and buries his body beneath the floorboards of his home. There, even though the old man is certainly dead, the murderer swears he can hear the beating of the heart coming up through the floorboards. No matter what he
I
does
actually
to
have a
quiet
book
the
somewhere
sound,
that
cannot
was
escape
written
it,
by
and is
Edgar Allan
eventually
Poe.
driven mad by the incessant beating
Somewhere.
of the dead man's heart. SCP-058 may not be a man's heart, a human
I
heart,
mean, I also
or
have a
even
book
real
on
heart
torture,
at all.
but
However,
you
just
know.
like the Telltale Heart, it continues to impossibly beat no matter how
I mean,
hard
what?
anyone tries to stop it. The steady thump of its pulse haunts the SCP Foundation, a grim reminder that there is something within its walls that can and will kill everyone it can if given the chance. It couldn't be destroyed by collapsed buildings, an armored tank, or an army of experts, and the contingency plan of a nuclear blast is not even guaranteed to work. It is entirely possible that, once the facility has been laid waste and all the staff have been incinerated, and the smoke has finally cleared, the Heart of Darkness will still be there, still beating, still talking, and still killing. Now go check out SCP-1981, Reagan Cut Up While Talking, and SCP-2662 Cthulhu for more of the
Anyway, that'll be it for this video. And yes, I do actually have a book about torture methods, and you don't want to read that. I'm speaking from experience, by the way. Anyway, again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video of whatever I'll be making. So yeah, bye.